Welcome back. For today's deep dive, we're tackling a question that really gets to the heart of a lot of frustration for people. It's this feeling of being stuck, asking, why is my life just not quite right, even when I feel like I should have access to, well, immense spiritual power. And for this, we're looking at sources from Andrew Murray, who was writing directly to people who felt this exact thing. He was basically asking, if the spiritual life is all about freedom and love, what is this terrible hindrance that gets in the way?
That framing is so important. The source material really kicks off by laying out the promise from Scripture, this idea that the Holy Spirit is meant to free us from the law of sin and death.
Okay, hold on. Let's quickly unpack that phrase, law of sin and death. It sounds a bit, technical. What does that actually feel like day to day?
Think of it as your internal autopilot, the one that always seems to pull you toward failure. It's that gravitational pull of our nature that leads to things we know are wrong.
Or just failing to show up with what the sources call the fruit of the Spirit.
Exactly, which Murray really boils down to unconditional love. So you know you should live in love and freedom, but you keep defaulting back to, I don't know, frustration, anger, fear.
And the whole point of this deep dive is to find the single toxic root of that problem. And the source material is, it's brutally direct. It boils that terrible hindrance down to a single four-letter word.
Yeah, the big reveal.
The word is S-E-L-F.
Self.
Self.
Yeah.
It just seems so simple.
Yeah.
Almost too simple for such a huge, chaotic problem. But Murray's argument is that the life of Christ, the power of the Spirit, it's all waiting to come in.
But there's just one condition.
You have to completely surrender your own life. Because if self is allowed to live even a little bit, it's like this massive wall blocking everything else.
And that leads us right to the command for how to overcome it. Matthew 16:24. It's where Jesus says, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.
Right, and to really get the weight of that, we have to look at who heard it first.
Yeah.
Peter. The context here is just,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
It really is. Just moments before Jesus says this, he asks the disciples, who do you think I am? And Peter has this monumental spiritual high. He gives the divine answer.
You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.
And Jesus confirms it. He calls him blessed, says God the Father revealed it to him. So at that moment, Peter is a pure channel for divine truth.
He has the Spirit of God literally working through him.
Exactly. But here's the pivot. Right after that peak, Jesus starts talking about his mission, his, suffering and crucifixion.
And Peter, still on that high, just jumps in. He says something like, God forbid, pity thyself. That's never going to happen. He's speaking from, what, human opinion, human zeal.
And from self-regard. And the rebuke he gets is maybe the most shocking one in the whole New Testament. Jesus goes from calling him bliss to just this stunning condemnation. He says Peter's idea is a hellish thing.
Taught by Satan. Get thee behind me, Satan.
Can you imagine?
Let's just stop there for a second and really absorb that paradox. Because that's the key to understanding this whole self-life thing. How can the same guy who is speaking divine truth one minute be speaking for the devil the next?
Well, that's what the self-life is. It's this blend of spiritual knowledge with a totally human agenda. Peter knew who Christ was, but he hadn't surrendered his own will, his own idea of how things should go.
So his suggestion, pity thyself, it was telling Christ to save his own life.
But it was also Peter refusing to accept that he also had to be crucified,
Right.
Spiritual. He wasn't ready for his own agenda to die.
So that's the toxic impulse. Refusing the cross, the death of our own plans, even if we intellectually get who Jesus is.
Yeah.
Murray calls this a converted but unsatisfied man.
Yeah.
He's got the Spirit, but also, as he puts it, a deal of the toxic impulse still running the show. So where does this self even come from? Didn't God make us with free will? With self-determination? Isn't that supposed to be a good thing?
A very good thing. And the sources are careful to make that distinction. God created a good self, a self-determining power that was designed to constantly turn towards him, to find its whole life in depending on him.
But something went wrong.
The ruin, as the sources trace it, goes back to the moment that power turned inward. The theological origin, to simplify it, is this bright spirit, an angel who looked at himself, admired his own beauty and power.
And pride entered his heart.
Right. He basically said, I am as God. He turned his worship from God to himself. And that self-exaltation was the fall of the devil.
And the sources say that when the devil came to Eve, he breathed that same impulse into humanity, that very poison of hell.
With that one simple promise, you will be like God. It's that core desire to be your own boss, to decide for yourself what's good and evil, instead of receiving it from God.
Murray uses this really vivid, almost disturbing analogy for it. He compares it to a child playing with a beautifully colored but poisonous snake.
Mm.
We cherish this self, this my will or my opinion. We think it's beautiful. We nourish it.
But the warning is that this self inherited its nature from that original toxic impulse. And if you let it live, it just drags you back toward misery. The root of our sin isn't just some temptation out there. It's this corrupt self in here.
Okay, so that's the origin. Now we have to get practical. If that's the root, where do we see its shadow in our daily lives? What are the chief manifestations of this self-life?
The sources list three, and they're clear that you find these in everyone, especially in believers, not just out in the world. They are self-will, self-confidence, and self-exaltation.
Let's start with self-will. I think most of us hear that and think of, huge rebellious sins,
Okay.
like robbing a bank or something. But Murray says it's much, much more subtle.
Way more subtle. Self-will is simply the desire to do what I like. It's this unspoken belief that in all the little things you get to have your own way. A lot of believers just never grasp that a core condition of following Christ is promising to never seek your own will again,
Even in the small stuff.
especially in the small stuff.
So deciding to just check out of a hard conversation, or scrolling on your phone instead of being present, or even that constant little internal complaint about some minor inconvenience, that's self-will.
That's self-will pleasing itself. And the sources say that even in those little things, it's the cause of all our sin and our own internal wretchedness. If self is getting its way anywhere, the corrupt roots stay strong. It's like a tiny leak that drains all the power.
All right, number 2, self-confidence. This one's tricky because we're taught to be driven, to have integrity, to be earnest.
And that's the trap. Self-confidence in this context is trusting in your own ability or your own earnestness or your own integrity instead of Christ. And this is where Peter comes right back into focus.
Right. When Jesus warned him, he didn't say, "Lord, help me be strong," he said.
He declared, "They may all forsake you, but I will never leave you. I will go to the death with you."
He was trusting his own love, his own determination.
Exactly. And that trust in self and his own courage and fervor was the very thing that led to his spectacular fall just a little while later.
I can really see how this applies to you, the listener. You might start out on a spiritual path so brightly, full of discipline, full of enthusiasm, and then you fall back. And you blame it on stress or distraction. But the source is suggesting the real issue is that you were trusting your own effort, your own watchfulness.
Are you striving with your own resources? That's the question. Because the sources imply that if you were truly trusting Christ, he never could have let you fall. You just hadn't given up the idea that your personal effort was the key.
Okay, the third one, self-exaltation, pride. This one, I think, hits everybody.
Oh, absolutely. This is seeking your own honor. And Murray's examples are so wonderfully human and specific. The symptoms are things like touchiness. If someone doesn't give you the respect you think you deserve.
Or envy, seeing someone else's success and feeling that sting,
Or
or jealousy over their position.
And this is where we get that slightly funny but deeply insightful bit about what people are proud of. A man can be proud of anything. The sources list things like a fine head of hair, nice clothes, your level of education.
Or even riding a very fine horse.
The fine horse example is perfect for today, isn't it? It's the person who's proud of their high-status car, their social media clout, their perfect home aesthetic.
The thing itself doesn't make you any better, but you seek honor from it. And that impulse, that seeking of honor, Murray just insists is rooted in that corrupt self.
It goes right back to the beginning. I will be like God. It's the hunger for status, for recognition. And you can't be seeking to raise yourself up and be living a life of love and service at the same time. It's impossible.
So we've identified the monster, we know its origin, and we have its 3 main weapons: self-will, self-confidence, and self-exaltation. Which brings us to the most important part. How do we conquer it? Because just knowing about it is clearly not enough.
That's right. The solution isn't to try harder. It's not better behavior. It's annihilation and replacement. We have to go back to Christ's 3-part command. It's the only way.
Step 1, deny self.
Utterly reject it. And this is more than just resisting temptation. It's saying, I have nothing to do with this impulse. Deny that self with the same energy Peter used to deny Christ. Just total rejection.
Step 2, take up the cross, which means spiritual death.
Exactly. Christ meant, just as I'm giving up my physical life, you must give up your self-life. This isn't a metaphor for trying hard. It's about aligning with what Paul said. I am crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The self has to be condemned to death daily.
And then the third step, Follow me, follow Jesus. That's where the wonderful exchange happens.
It is. It forces this stark moment-by-moment choice. And you realize, if I am not actively denying self, I'm actively denying Jesus. When that little bit of self-will pops up and you indulge it, you're basically saying, I'm with self right now, not Jesus.
The freedom comes in seeing how clear that choice is. You follow self or you follow Jesus.
There is no third option.
But the sources really stress that just rejecting self isn't the whole story. You can't just cast it out. You have to deal with the empty space, right? Murray talks about this with the parable of the cleansed house.
Yeah, if the house is emptied, if you manage to kick self out for a minute, but Christ, the stronger one, doesn't immediately come in to fill that space, that old impulse will just come back 7 times worse.
The goal isn't just to be empty of bad things.
The goal is to be entirely filled and governed by a new life.
So for you listening, how does that replacement actually happen? Does it take years of discipline?
Well, the good news, according to the source material, is that the decision itself can happen in a single moment. You can, tonight, quietly kneel and just condemn that self. Recognize it as the only cause of your unhappiness, your temper, your pride, your willfulness.
You can't tear the root out yourself.
No, but you can cast it at Jesus' feet and say, Son of God, I'm done. I follow you with my whole heart all the way to death.
So the goal is total replacement. To let Christ become a new self in you. Fulfilling that declaration, it is no longer I, but Christ that lives in me. And that right there is the state of spiritual fulfillment, where love and freedom are the reality, not just the frustrating goal.
So this whole deep dive, it really clarifies that the fight isn't against individual failures. It's against the one corrupt root of self-serving pride, which shows up as self-will, self-confidence, and self-exaltation.
And the answer isn't more effort, it's total denial and absolute replacement. And to you, the listener, we have to be as direct as the sources are. There's very little hope for anyone who is, pretty well contented with himself. The person who thinks, I'm a good person, I'm really doing my best to be more humble, to control my temper.
The real first step toward freedom is to recognize and confess that self is the root of all of your misery and failure, not just some of it. It's admitting that all your own effort has failed. And what you need is a replacement, not just a repair job. So here's the final thought for you to take away, the central question for reflection. If your self has been trying to conquer its own evil works, using self-will to fight self-will, has it only been getting stronger this whole time? And what would it truly mean to stop trusting your own efforts to deny self and instead to actually trust Christ to be your life?
Thank you for sharing these really powerful sources with us and letting us go on this deep dive together. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.